This is not meant to be an advertisement for Plex, but I'll just give you a 1,000-foot view as to what we do. We provide cloud-based manufacturing execution systems and full ERP. We basically help organizations run their plants, whether that's pulling supply in through production all the way to customer shipments. But we get a lot of questions about, well, why are you a cloud-based system and why should I be looking at the cloud versus kind of traditional software? So I put this presentation with that kind of goal in mind. Ironically, being from Boston, we had a lot of clouds in the city dumping tons of snow on us over the past few days, almost preventing me from getting to this show, but I managed to get out a day late, but I did get here. We hear a lot about cloud, and a lot of different companies use cloud to mean very different things, but it's a really great marketing buzz term right now. I'm a marketer myself, so I use the term all the time, but we tend to find that people have different definitions and different meanings. So I want to explore a little bit about what the different types of cloud are, their different flavors, and really what that means and some of the questions you could potentially ask a cloud provider to identify what sort of cloud offering they truly do have. Because you have to get below, that marketing buzz to find out what you're really looking at. I've worked now for 4 cloud-based software companies. In fact, I don't think I would ever go work for a company that's not cloud-based, and a lot of that has to do with just the culture and the DNA that a cloud company brings to the table, and I'll get into that a little bit later. The other cloud companies that I've worked for sold into markets where the cloud had been almost universally adopted as a delivery model. In manufacturing, that is not necessarily the case yet, although I think we're getting to a tipping point. So I pulled this quote from the Harvard Business Review. The cloud is an inevitable and irreversible as the shift from steam to electric power manufacturing, to electric power in manufacturing. That's a pretty impactful statement. It's essentially saying that this is the wave of the future. You can resist it if you want, but it's eventually going to happen. I don't know of anyone that's actually still running their companies with steam-based power today. There are a couple of terms that you might also hear. When I first started covering kind of hosted software, it was really called SaaS, or software as a service then, and now this cloud term has really emerged as sort of an umbrella term that actually encompasses these 3 different major models. So the first is infrastructure as a service. This is what you might hear from someone like Amazon with Amazon Web Services, when you just have a lot of data that you want to store somewhere in the cloud for later retrieval. Let them deal with the backup and recovery and all of the storage related to that infrastructure. Then there's platform as a service. Now this is where organizations are providing tools and technologies to let you build cloud applications on your own. So if you want to go build an application or an app, instead of going and buying a server, a development environment, an application server, a database, you use a platform as a service to build your application. Salesforce has actually done a great job with their Force.com platform, and it's becoming a really prevalent platform that independent software companies are now building their applications on top of. And then where Plex plays in this cloud world is in software as a service. So we actually build, maintain, and service a full suite of software applications for manufacturing. So you don't have to build the application, you don't have to worry about the infrastructure, the security, the hosting. That's all taken care of. It's a complete service in a package. And typically a software as a service vendor charges on a subscription basis. That's pretty common across the ecosystem today. So with some of that kind of house cleaning, now talking more specifically about that software as a service, that third pillar that I described, what we're finding is there are really 2 emerging models there. And I kind of break it into one of 2 camps. So you have private cloud, and that's essentially where a company is building and hosting an application. They're staging a set of servers specifically for you as a company. And then there's the public cloud, which is really the more modern approach and where most newer software companies are bringing their cloud technology. It's where there's a single code base and a single set of servers and data storage that serve all of the customers. And you might ask, well, why do I really care whether it's one server for me or if it's one server for many customers? Well, the reality is this model on the right scales a lot more effectively. The costs of provisioning a new customer in that model are dramatically cheaper. It's easier to maintain, it's easier to upgrade and to update, whereas the private cloud model is a much more expensive model to bring to market. So most companies aren't building net new software as a service or cloud applications on the private cloud model. I'll go into a little bit more detail there. A lot of times when you see that private cloud model, it's because somebody's built an application on older technology that isn't meant to be delivered over the internet. So really what they'll do is they'll sort of build a browser-based interface on the front end of that application and deliver it over the internet and call it cloud. But the reality is it's not going to scale. If you run out of storage space, you run out of performance, then they're going to have to go in and physically do something to your instance, add more servers or add more storage or add more computing capacity. It doesn't scale well at all. It doesn't grow as your business grows. Whereas the public cloud is completely elastic. And that's where, you know, if your business grows or you have spikes in performance or spikes in sales that are going to actually put more demand on the system, it's one big system built to absorb that expansion and contraction in your computing needs. So that's why most new software companies are building on the public cloud model. All of the common ones that you hear of, Salesforce.com, all of the Oracle Cloud, they're all built on a public cloud model. So I've talked a lot about technology to this point, and you know, you can kind of get stuck in that discussion of, all right, well, tell me about your technology infrastructure and how your software is built. But at the end of the day, if you're buying a piece of software, you're trying to solve a business problem, right? And it doesn't necessarily matter to you on a day-to-day basis what's, you know, working behind the scenes. Kind of, you know, you buy a new car, you don't really care about how the fuel injection system works. You just want to make sure the car gets you from point A to point B. And the reality is cloud is actually changing how you are able to consume and succeed with software. And that's a fundamental difference. So if you look over here at the public cloud, and this is, you know, again, where my company has decided to build our model, it's really ingrained in the DNA of our organization, because we're not just going out and selling a piece of software, giving it to you, charging maintenance, and then wishing you good luck and hoping you get value out of that application. We're in the subscription business, so we're in the business of making our customers successful. So that's fundamentally impacts how we go to market. We're really trying to maximize customer lifetime value, how much you get out of the software, and get your renewal, because that's ultimately going to drive our business. So it's important for us to actually make sure our customers are successful. It's a very different model from most software companies. In terms of how we service our customers, all of our customers are always on the latest version of the application. So when we create new features and functions, those roll out and get consumed by our customers almost immediately. Some companies will stage those, some cloud companies will do quarterly releases. Salesforce.com does this, you get kind of seasonal releases. We're continuously putting out new features and functions for our customers to be able to take advantage of. They don't have to upgrade, they don't have to install a new version, it just is always constantly up to date. So our customer support always knows what version of the software you're on. And even the culture of our company, we're built as a service provider trying to make companies successful. We're not a product company, just shipping product out the door and wishing you good luck. So that's an important distinction as well. So a company like Plex, where we're 100% a cloud provider, we have different metrics, we have different expectations, and we have different levels of engagement with our customers than a traditional software company would. So after going through all that, a lot of times I still get questions or concerns about the cloud. And I liken this a lot to air travel. So we've probably all flown on a plane, and you hit turbulence, or you hear all these stories about delays, and flying always feels like a scarier experience than driving in your car, because you have complete control when you're in your car, right? But the reality is flying in a plane is dramatically safer. You just don't get to actually drive the plane unless you happen to have a private pilot's license, which most people probably don't. So there are sometimes emotional objections to the cloud because you're not controlling your environment anymore. You're not putting servers and plugging them in and building databases and tuning security layers. So a lot of times I'll hear, well, we hear about hacking. all the time. I hear about a new hacking event. We just heard the big, issue with Sony around their movie, and people immediately assume, oh, that's a cloud vulnerability. So I get this question a lot. Well, do you guys have to, sort of deal with all of these security issues on a regular basis? So I kind of dug in a little bit further, and I kind of pulled up all the big kind of security breaches that got a lot of press recently, and then dug into what was actually the challenge, or what was the security problem there. And it turns out none of them had anything to do with the cloud at all. In most cases, it was either, in the case of Home Depot and Target, was actually a point of sale breach. So somebody actually got some malware into the point of sale, and that's what ended up getting them into the system. Sony was, hackers using malware to get behind their own internal firewalls, not anything related to the cloud at all. And even eBay, which you think of as kind of an internet cloud-based company, their security breach was an internal accounting system that got hacked. So the reality is you don't hear stories about cloud companies getting breached because we spend so much time, energy, and money creating the most secure, bulletproof systems that we can, because that's our reputation. So the reality is we, as cloud providers, tend to be far more secure than any individual one of our customers could ever be, because we can build it with economies of scale around security. Another one that I hear a lot is, well, if I move to the cloud, then suddenly I don't have my data anymore. I don't own my data. And that's, I think, a concern, because the data is not physically located on a machine in your own data center. But the reality is, at least at Plex, we have a very evolved integration strategy so that we make it incredibly easy for our customers to get access to their data anytime they want. In fact, they have better access to their data than most companies do, because you can access your system from any internet-aware device, whether it's a smartphone, whether it's a laptop, anywhere in the world, as long as you have internet access. So I would argue that we actually give you better access and more continuous access to your data as a cloud provider than you would even get from an internal system. And we do also let you integrate to, whether it's other cloud systems like Salesforce.com or Workday, two other common cloud providers, or even on-premise systems like Oracle and SAP. So cloud systems can actually talk to on-premise systems very easily, and our data is completely transparent and easy to access from inside your organization. Myth 3, and actually I just had this conversation with a gentleman at our booth no more than an hour ago. He said, oh, cloud, that sounds expensive. And that actually was a surprise to me, because the intent of the cloud is to lower the cost of ownership of software, because you don't have to hire IT people, you don't have to buy servers, you don't have to buy middleware, you don't have to buy databases, because we can buy those things in scale and deliver them in mass. It helps us deliver your software much more cost effectively. In addition to that, though, there are oftentimes hidden costs for on-premise systems that people tend to ignore or not account for. So things like application servers, they're just looking at the cost of the piece of software. Well, we got the license cost, and then we have the 22% maintenance every year. Yeah, but you're also buying, database servers, licensing for, a server and then a user-based system. So if you want to add more users over time, it's maybe another $2,000 per user. We don't sell our software that way. It's not user-based at all. It's based on your company. And then maintenance tends to get forgotten. That's anywhere from 15 to 20% of your license cost in a traditional software environment. And then any customizations you do, and then most importantly, the dreaded upgrade. Has anyone here been through a software upgrade in the past? Was it fun? Very painful. It's never a fun process. There's a cost associated with doing an upgrade. You might not account for that when you're looking at all the costs associated with your software implementation, but it takes time, energy, there's downtime, there are usually glitches, and there's an opportunity cost even, because you can't manufacture or you can't bill your customers when that system is down. We're doing some total cost of ownership analysis right now, and in fact, I'm working on getting a tool built that we can put on our website so that you could actually go and plug these numbers in yourself. Our website's plex.com. The tool's not up there yet, but it will be in a month or so. And what we typically find is that over time, even though you're paying for a cloud-based service as a subscription on an annual basis, the fact that you're paying maintenance and you're paying for those upgrades, so if you look at this blue line here, That's the total cost for an on-premise system over time. And these little spikes you see, that's when an upgrade gets performed. And so the cost tends to spike. And so what we found in most cases is that even over time, 5 years, 10 years, cloud can still be cheaper because you're not dealing with all of those quote unquote hidden costs that a lot of people don't think about ahead of time when they're comparing the two models. So a good cloud-based software company should be able to provide you a lower cost of ownership throughout the subscription lifespan. I get this one too. Plex really powers the plants for our customers. So we are a mission critical application. If our software goes down, their production goes down. I would definitely call that a mission critical, piece of software. The reality is a lot of the early software as a service or early cloud-based systems were CRM, human capital management, or HR systems that you could argue aren't as mission critical. Okay, if a salesperson can't find somebody's phone number, they probably have a Rolodex they can rely on. Or if HR can't access your HR record for another day, maybe that's a good thing. Depends on whether you've been getting in trouble at work or not. But we think we're bucking this trend, and we're looking at all of the other mission-critical ERP vendors in the market now are rapidly trying to figure out how to move to the cloud because they've recognized that we're kind of at that tipping point now that companies like Plex have proven that even for mission-critical manufacturing operations, the cloud is still a viable, and in fact, most cases, a preferred option. The reality is you are probably using the cloud today for some of your mission critical applications, even if you didn't realize it. So ADP, for an example, right? I mean, a lot of your paychecks probably come from ADP. That's a cloud-based service, has been for years. And believe me, that's mission critical. If somebody doesn't get their paycheck, HR is going to hear about it. Salesforce.com, Amazon, their entire business is based on a cloud model. And then I just wanted to emphasize too that the uptime of our application, I went and looked it up over the past year, and we're at 99.986. And that's more reliable than most internal IT organizations are today. So the reality is if you're gonna be putting your application up and it needs to be mission critical, the cloud is probably a good place to be looking. And then lastly, I hear a lot that companies feel like they're very unique and they're different. This picture here, I was putting this slide deck together late on a Friday one day, and I feel bad for my office mate Bill over here because I couldn't stop laughing for about 10 minutes because I was getting punchy. But I do hear this, well, we're a very unique business, so we can't use a cloud-based model because that's a one-size-fits-all. We need to customize, right? Everybody wants to customize, and they forget about how painful it is once you have to upgrade those customizations down the road. So what we've done is we've actually built configuration into our system, and that's how cloud providers get around this notion of customization. So yeah, you can't go in and actually change the code in Plex or in Salesforce.com, but these systems are so highly configurable now. I mean, there are people who have used Salesforce.com to build almost entirely new applications using their CRM. It's that flexible. And we've built that kind of flexibility into our system as well so that you don't have to write custom code. And then more importantly, when we build new features and functions, you can still take advantage of them. You're not locked into an old version because you built custom code like in a traditional software model. So while we're not customizing, we're still configuring the system to meet your individual needs. So in summary, when you hear people talk about the cloud, you might want to ask a couple of questions. Ask them what kind of cloud that is. Are you a platform as a service or are you a software as a service provider? Are you based on a private cloud or are you based on a public cloud? And that'll give you a much better idea what they really mean by cloud, so you can cut through some of the marketing fluff, because that's really what we're seeing a lot of in the market now, because cloud is getting a lot of attention from search engine optimization and marketing organizations. True Cloud is just as secure and reliable and built for mission critical applications as on-premise applications. In some cases, again, we're more reliable and more secure than what you'd be able to put behind your own firewall. And I believe that cloud is inevitable across every software category. We've already seen it in CRM, in marketing automation, in human capital management, and I think manufacturing and manufacturing operations is just one of the last categories that we're seeing move over to the cloud. So I don't think it's a if anymore, it's a when, and we're starting to see that tipping point already.